this series, because for this guy down here in the bottom left right-hand side of the map, he could potentially open up this group for those top 3 spots. Will he do it? He is, of course, DisK. Apprentice Esports. Oh my god. That, for some reason, I was just like, Psystorm Gaming? No, he's changed. He's on Apprentice now.
You got there. In the top left for Psystorm Gaming, she is Nina. You know, as much as I want to give Neeb credit, and as much as I was flip-flopping between each day, well, really not even each day, I'd say. Like the first 2 days, I was generally just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Third day, Neeb did okay. And then the fourth day, I guess, was yesterday, and I guess that was all right too. But I'm already losing track of days. But the point is, like, Neeb has not actually officially today not convinced me that he's going to do very well. Because yes, against Maples, he lost to 2 cheeses, and I guess Asuna did a couple of weird things himself. Neeb has just looked, at the very least, underwhelming. Like, even his play versus Vindicta, I would say that he was playing at 70%, and Vindicta was playing at 100, so definitely kudos to Vindicta, but Neeb has made some very large mistakes that I mean, honestly, I could be concerned, because just I've never seen him tilt so bad, if that is what's happening. Not since, like, 2015 versus the Hydra days. But that is a developing story. First and foremost, we got to watch this PvP unfold, and then we can talk more about the group dynamics during the desk. So Nina DisK should be a close match, and with PvP the way that it is, that always can toss things up into the air. Yeah, Nina's just proven to be a fantastic PvPer, perhaps even coming into this group and feeling highly confident because it was mostly Protoss.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think that just the matchup plays, again, a lot to Nina's strengths as a player, being a very micro-oriented player and everything. There's a lot of opportunities to let that shine and to really take advantages in the matchup, especially when it comes to the later stages of the game. I think there's also a lot of great comeback potential in PvP if you can survive to the later stages off of just good micro and solid engagements and stuff. I will say DisK has kind of, like, in my mind, always been a little bit on the other end of things. It's not that he has bad micro or anything, but I do think that he is more of like that solid macro player. Even before he really came up a lot more recently as a player and getting success, DisK was the guy who you couldn't pay him to do like a cannon rush or to cheese very much. He started mixing a little bit more of that in lately, but he really is a solid macro player in my mind.
So DisK did something a little bit cool. I do agree. I think he's a very solid macro player, but there's just so many elements of PvP that, yeah, it's still macro. He's still getting a Nexus. It's just the tiny things that can kind of put your opponent off. And one of those is making them think that the second pylon is hidden. So DisK hit it in his corner of his base on the left side or Romana side. And that might seem like, oh, why wouldn't you check there? Well, the thing that he doesn't have now is a forward pylon with a natural. So, whereas Nina does, and she's going to put her shield battery like in the front, so that's the most protection possible. Maybe a bit snipeable, I guess one could argue. DisK can't do that. So that would be one of the downsides of not always putting the second pylon in that position, and why it would convince Nina that something was up. So she's been looking all around with this probe, which might not mean a whole lot, but I mean, the probe itself has lost mining time, but then maybe she would have played a bit greedier by not going for a shield battery in the main or the natural, right? Like, either one you could technically skip if you were just assuming that DisK is a macro player and isn't going to do anything weird. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. It's a couple of small things, but it can make a difference. So for instance, DisK did not afford a shield battery in the main. Kind of already got a little bit of a victory there.
Yeah, I also want to note that there is, of course, the proxy pylon that was coming up here for Nina. She actually had a pylon, I swear, that was going up on the high ground around where like one of the high yield gas geyser bases is, but now has one at the bottom center, is working in a couple of depths. And I do wonder with the Twilight Council if she's looking to get a bit more aggressive.
Yeah, that's interesting. It should just be for Blink. I feel like a Dark Shrine would have been in like one of these corners, not necessarily where she put the pylon, and that is right now just for Adept Warp-ins. But DisK is also doing something more interesting, which is not grabbing a Forge. So, 9 times out of 10, a macro game or a mana side, you're going to go Blink, you're going to go Forge, you're going to delay the Robo as pretty much as you think is possible, unless you're playing Charge Archon Immortal. But, the 2 Adepts getting in is a bit annoying, because they're also going to get a Scout. They're going to be cleaned up fairly quickly. Looks like 2 probes go down. But yeah, the Robo could mean either a bit more aggression. You get a Warp Prism, you try and do something, which would be, I don't know, so unlikely because Nina is getting Blink, and that's one of the things that Blink is good against, is getting that Warp Prism taken care of. Or it might be DisK actually afraid. Gosh, I missed it again. I should have been paying attention to what pylon that was that Nina just hid. Because he might have thought that it was a Dark Shrine build. He might have gotten a hallucination in and saw a certain number of pylons that made him suspicious of a proxy pylon. So what you were saying, I know I sound like I'm going around in circles, but the end result is that DisK gets a Robo and not +1, which might put him further behind as we get into the macro game. There we go. Easier way of summing it up.
Yeah, there we do end up seeing the Stalkers moving on forward over here for DisK, sniping off one of the Stalkers there for Nina, but Nina forcing in a lot of the Stalkers here for DisK. A lot of force field energy being used while at the same time these Adepts looking for some kills, trying to distract Nina and pull her off into multiple directions. But at the end of the day, the biggest win that DisK walks away with is that it canceled the third base. And that's actually pretty important because while DisK did get the Robo up, I do agree, I think it probably was like preparing a little bit for potential of those Dark Templar and things, because he didn't get an Immortal, he didn't get a Warp Prism or anything else of this until now. He has had that Robo for, I want to say, like 2-3 minutes. He's only just now getting that second unit out.
Yeah, I think that was 100% it. But then DisK gets a much bigger victory than pushing off a Robo or not by getting that cancel, for sure. And Nina did not have her army prepared around the third base to combat what is usually a somewhat equal number of units. And then she didn't have a shield battery. And if the third Nexus is protected by the army and a shield battery, DisK doesn't do very much. He pokes, he goes, oh, okay, fair is fair, and then he leaves. But instead, getting a cancel from a fairly well-developed Nexus gives DisK a nice lead in this game, even though he's still behind in that upgrade.
Yeah, now Nina's approach to this game is going to be changing up from just going for, I have better upgrades and everything, to just, I have an overall better army. She's already gotten up the robotics bay pretty quickly, especially compared to DisK. Has that first disruptor nearly halfway done, and Nina's overall control with Blink Stalkers and Disruptors is definitely something to be feared. It is one of the reasons why I think she can especially be scary in PvP, because there have been a lot of games where Nina has fallen behind in PvP and come back off of her micro in those engagements.
Typically, we see that Disruptor play this fast as a bit of a dive towards a comeback unit, especially on Romanticide, where if you do manage to fall behind a little bit, defensive properties plus defensive Disruptors, equals pretty good chance of the comeback. But I also wonder, just, the NA region, we talk a lot about Disruptors, because of course Uncanning is here, but I feel like these are just units that every player in the NA region really enjoys. And for Nina, she might even think that she is the best with, which I think, people would argue perhaps, but she would have a case for sure. So that might be also why she's going into Disruptors. But right now, I think it is going to be pivotal that one of the Disruptor shots hits something, because that's a decent army coming in from DisK.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, Nina cannot win without a Disruptor hit, or at least the threat of a Disruptor hit, taking away DPS. Now, the force fields have been pretty killer over here for Nina, but the Blink forward slides off one of the Disruptors, the other Disruptor in the back. Very late to fire off the shot. I don't know if it tried to fire off a shot earlier and just missed it or something.
I think so. I think she probably box selected it, and maybe the priority wasn't there, or she definitely had a hotkey, and now that might be what ends up killing her. The overcharged shield battery no longer available, and just the regular shield batteries aren't quite cutting it, especially with DisK's 2 Immortals. Some Zealots do come in, however, and start helping on. Actually starting to turn around here as Nina blinks aggressively forward, fires a Disruptor shot that actually kills more of her own units, but with the shield battery still up and more reinforcements coming in, she might be able to make this hold work. Another blink forward from DisK, though, takes out the Disruptor. Is there another one on the way? There is, but is it going to get here in time? Charge lots being warped in from both players. Nina actually does have +2, though, and that, what may be, seals the deal as far as the defense goes. That finished kind of alongside the engagement, and towards the last little bits here, that might have been what saved her.
That is definitely going to be helping out quite a bit, but the Warp Prism is still here. And remember that Warp Prism is still sieged up right now, so it can't get away. There's the snipe off. The last round of Zealots does get warped in, and the Immortal gets target fire down. Beautiful micro there from Nina. Another shield battery overcharge is available. Gonna keep those Zealots alive, keep these units alive. DisK Force back is gonna be finishing up +2 weapons himself soon. Is gonna have his own Disruptors out, but the big opportunity to try and win the game right there is going to be gone. The big advantage DisK still has is that during all of those fights, during everything that was going on, during all of the micro, he took a 4th base and is up almost 15, 20 workers right now.
Yeah, that is still a big difference. Nina might have done an excellent job holding, might have really appreciated having the +2 timing when she did, but she is ultimately behind in this game. By going for disruptors in general, as I was talking about before the fight, kind of puts you in that position of the defender, the person who's looking for a comeback, also means that you slow down your game. It's a lot more harrowing to actually go out and reach your base when the other guy is going to have just more units, is maybe he's not transitioning. But for Nina, it was just all about defending the 3rd base first and foremost. Now she has the disruptor lead, but not by very much, and DisK has the economy lead, which he could use to either build a lot more disruptors, as his own 2nd robo is finishing as we get into this pause, or just kind of throw units at Nina and hope to stop her from ever really securing a 4th base.
All right, well, the game is resumed. We're back into it, and DisK is already pushing forward with his stalkers on the front lines. Nina trying to give chase, but DisK is out of there pretty quickly. 4th base being established over here for Nina is going to be a different location than we oftentimes see, especially in PvP, but I don't actually hate it too much if Nina can keep an eye out on this far right-hand side, and I think she does have a spotter unit over there. It's going to be so important to see when DisK is coming in along that top right and have these disruptors, have the stalkers in position.
One of the reasons that Nina isn't leading more in disruptors and straight up not leading at this point is 2 get sniped. The last one gets sniped as well. Oh, DisK with a great move right there. And of course his own disruptors to make sure the evacuation is totally safe. But the reason that she doesn't have more disruptors even before that happened was that she did spend time grabbing 4 observers when DisK only had the 1, I think, that he lost, and is trying to make them now. So Nina was going for that map control, that map vision that was supposed to help her stop losing disruptors like that. But even with the vision, she couldn't stop it. Now she's in a ton of trouble.
It really is. 5 observers, not going to be able to help contribute to the battle, but she, by sniping off a few more of those disruptors, she did start to re-equalize some of the disruptor count losses that she took earlier on. So it's 2-3 right now, and with the defender's advantage, she's going to have slightly faster disruptors reinforcing. She's going to have shield battery overcharge and everything. Is going to help out a little bit, but not as much versus the disruptors themselves, as they do not give a damn about your shield battery overcharge.
Oh, wow, the micro going down between the 2 of them is actually pretty sick. Even Nina splitting her units to just barely power down that 1 disruptor that was going to get a fantastic hit. These two pretty good micro. Nina has not had charge this entire time. She's been slow zealots trying to tank whatever they can, which they do still tank a fair amount. They just really need that charge to actually contribute to the fight, and it's only halfway done. Again, +3 finishing a bit faster for Nina, but DisK has done a great job catching up, even has a 2nd forge, so going for more upgrades. Plus, we're mostly talking about disruptors. Can DisK just win by going for more disruptors than his opponents? Maybe, but he could also probably just win by throwing bodies.
Yeah, that's definitely the approach he's been going for. Nina, I have to say, I can't tell if it's deliberate, but she has been killing the observers repeatedly, and I feel like in some of these fights, it must have been like target firing or something during the fight to kill the observer, because
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I was gonna say maybe she thinks that it's DisK's observers and that she might have a dark shrine, but she doesn't even have that. So just a lot of misclicks back and forth, and there's the big blink, and all the disruptors not so far getting any shots. That one gets a pretty good shot. Nina gets some revenge, but ultimately still down in army, and of course, having lost that 4th base is significantly down in economy.
It is definitely going to be an incredibly difficult position here for Nina, but if there's one thing we have learned over the years, Zombie Grub and Legacy of the Void, it is that a PvP is not over as long as there's a handful of disruptors still out on the map and some stalkers to protect them. This definitely has a stalker lead, 36-25, and also has a base count lead, but oh my god, that 1 disruptor from DisK kills so many of the stalkers there for Nina. Nina is trying to force this kind of quasi-weird base trade situation, but you need to keep your stalkers alive to make that work. Oh my god, the stalkers all just blown!
A 3rd disruptor shot's even coming out. This time DisK was paying a little more attention though, and just by sheer numbers has managed to weather the disruptor's storm. Is gonna push into the high ground, but no, disruptor's coming from the backside! Oh my god, Nina! Oh, is she actually doing this? Is she actually making the comeback? The recall's gonna come in, not in time to save her poor disruptors, but enough to save her Nexus. Oh my god, how did that happen?
I mean, this is going to be a little bit weirdly timed. She's trying to come in with a flank with some of the other reinforcing units, but she is a bit outnumbered over here. Has to blink back to her reinforcements. DisK goes and gives chase with his own blink and ends up only snagging a few more of those stalkers. This turns into such a weird situation now because Nina did manage to kill not only like one of the bases, but actually a lot of workers. So both of the players are on 4 bases and on equal-ish workers. It's just the only difference is that DisK still kept a lot more stalkers alive.
Yes, he did, but Nina's got disruptors in a dream. Her dreams, I guess, often come true. Unfortunately, I don't think she knows about the 5th base that DisK has taken, so she might not have the total accurate image of how this game is going, but I think she's just mostly thinking, can I get the disruptor shot yet again? Can I save my base? So far, she is. Shield overcharge is popped, gonna recharge that Nexus so it can't be sniped, and Nina is still fighting.
Oh my god, so many observers have gone down, and we see another snipe off on a disruptor there. Nina getting a nice pickoff. Continuing to just use this map vision to keep an eye out on where the observers are, and this is what allows her to do these kind of, I guess, more effective blinks with her units. But I feel like every single time DisK moves in, he's also chipping away at the Nexus, and we kind of saw exactly how this went last time. You get the pickoff there, and eventually you are okay with just backing off now, but if you can continue pushing forward, you absolutely will.
I think Nina might have to go for a second attempted base training to mess this game up, man. Like, yeah. She's got 3 disruptors coming out at a time. I don't know if she had preemptively built the 3rd robo or thought that it was going to die, but trying to afford 3 disruptors at a time when you're, barely managing to hold on to the 4th base, which obviously got killed again, that might just be a decision, right? Almost like getting into more tank production when you know your ultimate plan is to just doom drop the guy with Marines. Because that would be pretty sick if we're thinking that far into the future. Maybe Nina is, but she also kind of has to, because right now, she is in a really poor position.
She really is. I will say one of the key things again, and I mean, this is quite literally how Neeb was able to win Kespa Cup, his vision, observers. That was actually one of the most key things that Neeb was able to do when he won Kespa Cup with Blink Stalker Disruptors. And that is what Nina still has. She still has those observers around the map. Is doing a great job keeping an eye out on DisK's army and spotting out the disruptor. She spots out the disruptor. She's going in for the flank potentially on all of them. Oh, is she going to be able to find it?
The blink's on cooldown. The blink's on cooldown. Oh, the timing was so close for hitting the stalkers. And of course, if she could have, hitting the disruptors also would have been beautiful. Something she's still going to try and do. 4 disruptors are going to be left behind by DisK, and they get destroyed as Nina takes another advantageous position, at least as far as the disruptor count went. She's now 6-2, even as she loses the 2 that were trying to go for the backstab and continues to keep the supplies surprisingly close together. Still only a 20 supply difference, and now she has so many disruptors that I don't think that DisK can really just power her down. He needs to get his own good disruptor shot.
I mean, this is one of the most difficult things about PvP is you can get into what seems like a really great advantageous position, but if you can't get through your opponent's 5+ disruptors, at the end of the day, they're going to continue to just slowly get up their bases, slowly get up their army supply, and it becomes really complicated. But wow, what an aggressive blink forward from DisK! And it does not pay off in a lot of ways. Ends up losing quite a bit, but with the charge lots reinforcing over here, the snipes off on the remaining disruptors, I think that might actually be enough unless Nina can somehow summon enough units to reinforce. She does warp in some of her own charge slots. Oh, doesn't want to take too many losses there, and she does have some more of her own disruptors coming in to reinforce as well.
I can't believe Nina's still holding on. DisK is, I think at this point, he's getting a little impatient. These forward blinks are, well, that one was okay. That one was totally fine. Does take revenge of the disruptor losses, and now Nina has to wait for the other 3 to come around, but she is producing 3 at a time, and that's a big reason why she's still in this game. DisK, probably rightfully so, has been like, I can just hammer you down, right? Like, I should be able to win. I have been on 5 bases, going on a 6 now, for much longer than even been on 4. But Nina keeps taking barely good enough fights. By the way, a lot of the time with stalkers that are significantly out-upgraded, it has 100% been about the disruptors.
Oh, 150%. +2 armor and shield upgrades for DisK. This is definitely one of those points where DisK is either thinking like, yeah, I'm just going to keep throwing units at you. You can try and micro all you want. Or he's getting frustrated with the fact that he can't close out this game because it's been so close. I think DisK is once again giving Nina some of the time that she's back up to 5 disruptors now. DisK is at just 1. And I think as if DisK can still make this happen with these kind of terrible trades back and forth, even with those kind of disruptor hits going in Nina's favor, if you can shut down the 5th base repeatedly, then Nina will even bleed out on that top center base.
Yes, yeah. Eventually, like, there's no way she can really win this game one base at a time, one fully fighting base at a time. But that's what she's gonna try, and then maybe eventually she can afford just Dark Templar, right, for some harassment, or maybe just like simply maxing out. And the maxing out is a pretty great equalizer of any StarCraft game. Banks still matter, of course, but if you're equalized on the supply, you have a shot. You absolutely have a shot. So, Nina. Oh, the observer's right there. DisK knows what he's doing. Is he once again overinvested? However, no, by the looks of things, that went totally fine. Another disruptor shot, not quite hitting. Nina almost finding those last 2 strikes to make up for what DisK's pounce had done to her disruptor count, but it's not quite going to work out. DisK also has his own DT starting to cause harassment and havoc everywhere else, and I think Nina, at this point, down 70 supply, has to tap out of this game. It's done.
I think finally it's taken a bit too much damage. Just doing a great job, just continuously picking away and ensuring there's absolutely no chance of that 5th base going on up. Now, finally, yet again, we see that DisK is here, but this time has the disruptors in a forward position, has gotten aggressively far enough forward they can snipe off the base, and Nina is finally going to yield, finally taps out. To see just a sigh of relief there from DisK as he slumps his shoulders. He doesn't look like the winner based on the cameras, but he absolutely was the one that had to work for that win and did finally earn it.
Yeah, in that way, DisK might be being a little hard on himself. Like, I clearly should have won that game ages ago, which, technically, yes. I do wonder if at some points maybe going for more of a literally brute force approach. There's the brute force approach that said disruptor micro doesn't matter, let's just make stalkers. But then there's even more brute force, which is just mass zealots, which really gets complicated because the disruptor is not guaranteed to get the most amazing hits, those speedy boys charging at you. And the stalkers even start to get overwhelmed if we're talking about sheer numbers, which DisK could have gone for, but was always stopped just short of because the disruptors would tear his supply down.
I think it's definitely a tough call, I think, in that situation is just because you also look at that top center base that Nina was mining from. And I want to say like 80% of the time, maybe actually 100% of the time, there was no gas taken at that base. And that is oftentimes like one of the big limiting factors. If you're going for a blink stalker disruptor army, you still need a lot of gas to invest, not just, you know, the minerals into the stalkers and everything, but you need a lot of gas to continue making all those units. So the fact that Nina was still able to make all that work, even on such a scrappy economy, without the gas guys that are at a 4th base and everything, was just amazing. And it goes back to highlighting why Nina is so stalwart in PvP. Is just she is able to leverage her strengths as like this top-notch micro player, where even when she falls behind, she can just hold on and hold on and hold on and potentially constantly threaten these comebacks.
And that is also a nod to DisK as well, that he was able to still overcome that, because I would say that as far as the game went, it obviously started when Nina lost her 3rd Nexus, and she probably felt like she had to do something to come back with, so that was the choice of the disruptors. But we know how strong she is. We know that there's plenty of people who have messed up finishing games against her because they get either too overeager or they get too scared. They're just like, oh, Nina's going to destroy me in these micro wars, so they even are afraid of her counterattacking or something, right? But DisK did a pretty good job of towing the line when we consider the other comebacks that Nina has shown us.
Yeah. Well, guys, we are going to be hopping into game number 2 on 2,000 atmospheres. We're going to be starting up at the top right-hand side of the map on top of the blue Protoss player. He is Apprentice Esports' DisK.
In the bottom left, repping Psystorm, she is Nina.
Remember, both these players are sitting at number 1 and number 2 spots in the group. This is definitely going to help potentially open things up in the group if DisK can actually take that victory over Nina in the whole series score. It's going to I think it would actually end up tying DisK up with Nina in terms of like the overall series score. And it puts Nina in an awkward spot where then the match against Neve is going to be very important if she still wants to secure that top 2 spot. So DisK is looking for potentially making the playoff run just a little bit potentially easier.
Right, a little bit easier. I think at this point we are talking mostly these two as being secure.
Yeah.
But the top 2 or even top 1 still very much things that you want. Not to mention the $100 they get for winning a best of 3.
Yeah. definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, I think show matches oftentimes don't even pay out the $100 for the winner and stuff. So these guys will be very happy to play even the best of 3 for the $100. But I think actually, especially both of these players do have a lot of pride in their play and everything. DisK is one of those players that has been streaming a lot. He's been putting a lot of effort and love and time into his StarCraft play and really does care about how his performance has been doing. And especially Nina. I think Nina is someone who also takes a lot of pride in her play and being able to be one of the top NA players.
Yeah, I do think that, small shout out is worthy of the 2 streams, because maybe we talk a lot about how there's some European streamers, obviously here, Marine, it is truly impressive how much that guy talks and continues to, beat Lambo on the ladder while he's explaining how he does it. Because Lambo's obviously very, very good. But we might kind of disregard some of the North American just because of the time zone, right? Not known for the highest viewership. The Europeans, they go to bed, but they do have 2 really cool streams. DisK is constantly playing on the European ladder and got a really cool style, as we can see here. And Nina, I think ditto, even though she does play on North America as well. But yeah, just a quick little shout out to the 2 players and their, I guess, off time, like streaming and practicing. But DisK has got a little proxy target going, and this is going to play off of that last build order that he chose where he hit that pylon.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. I missed the exact angle that probe hit the Zelnaga watchtower at, because Nina had that probe at the Zelnaga watchtower also. And if you see that probe coming in from a weird angle, it might have just been a scouting probe. But it also could be a little bit of a reveal. Let's see, does she go there with the stalker? She is heading straight for that position. I think the probe may have just given this away, and 2 stalkers working away at a pylon. Oh, with the chronobus. Oh my god, Nina! Oh, she's gonna miss it.
I know I think she saw it. She's just worried that she can't stop the Oracle. She's not sure about the timing, maybe? Yeah, making sure the stalkers get there first, and then she comes back.
I was thinking normally you just want to recall if you're a little bit worried about it, but yeah.
True.
I think she could have gotten it.
She could have gotten, well, you think, stop the Oracle? Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. She could have stopped the Oracle. Yeah, you're right about that. I think it was just a misclick, as in she just sent her stalkers first and foremost into the main. But that's doubly unfortunate, because she doesn't stop the first Oracle from coming out. Obviously, she stops the second. But then she also loses 2 stalkers.
Oh, that Oracle looking for a kill. Rounds the bend. Oh, gets the kill.
There you go. Yeah, so also loses 2 stalkers. So not the best for Nina, who did read that well, but didn't have everything in the right place from the get-go.
Yeah, I guess the bright side is not losing a whole lot of workers or anything just yet, although, I guess the shield batteries should protect the main base now, so you don't have to send all those stalkers over to the main base self-defend. Just 1 or 2 stalkers in the main should be plenty enough. Continue to push forward with your stalkers at the front lines at the natural. Nina's got her shield batteries on both sides. Has that Twilight Council fishing gun up. Stasis trap. Oh, catches quite a few probes in the main.
Yeah, a bit of a missed judgment right there. I was about to applaud because I figured that she knew that a stalker and 2 probes would do it, but maybe only if the 2 probes are pulled instantly. So that actually turns into a decent stasis trap. Now, as far as the follow-ups go, DisK might look a little awkward that he couldn't be able to get 2 oracles, which clears through that shield battery. For the most part, getting that Stargate, it doesn't push you off so far away from what your opponent's doing that you can't recover. So his blink is a little bit later. His +1 is a little bit later. But you do get just the safety of the Oracle consistently scouting. And maybe the Oracle can grab a couple of probes. Like, for instance, here, maybe could have grabbed 2, went for the Revelation instead.
Yeah, I think always a little bit tense to try and dive in there for the probes when you know all those stalkers around. And Blink, of course, is on the way. It's not finished or anything, so there was an opportunity. But then there's always the question of there's a shield battery there and stuff. Is it just going to end up healing the probe? I'm attacking. So good for the guaranteed Revelation. I don't hate it. Both these players are going to be getting up into their kind of normal PvP mid-game, getting up lots of stalkers. And I like the DisK also. He's found the extra gas and everything to invest in the sentries. So now that you don't even have to worry about hallucinating Phoenix to get the scouts off and everything, the sentries can be really helpful in these stalker versus stalker wars with Guardian Shield.
DisK did go up to 3 gateways first and foremost. Which would be interesting. Usually like 2-2, which is what Nina has done, going up to 4. And obviously he also fit in a Nexus. So Nina is definitely looking to punish this. If she doesn't, the Nexus is quite a bit ahead of hers. I think she should be able to punish this to a certain degree. Well, especially if DisK isn't paying attention initially. Loses a handful of Stalkers, loses the Oracle, has the Guardian Shield, yes, but no shield better than Miss Micros. Did I see that correctly? This actually could be game.
Yeah, it's 16 Stalkers to 7 right now, Zombie Garb. There's not even a pylon over here at this third base to do anything. The recall comes out.
Oh,
but I think that was trying to be an intimidation recall.
Yeah, you think he just maybe had all of his Nexus hotkeyed and thought another one would recall it?
No, I thought it was an intimidation recall where it's like, please see that I'm recalling units. Like, surely you're going to leave now because there's no way that this works out now.
Yeah, and his little shout on the camera was definitely an attempt to shout across the world to Nina.
There you go, exactly.
Oh, it was obviously a big mistake. That was an unfortunate sequence of events. Like, that was... I think DisK was already going to be in a really tough position, but if he had seen it coming, he micros, he buys a little time, he has Blink with all of his units still together. I think he still is in a tough position without a shield battery ready to go, but it would have looked better. A little more convincing, maybe even pulls the probes in the natural or something if he realizes things are going too poorly, but he didn't even realize. He just had no idea.
All I can say, Zombie Grub, is, wow, that escalated quickly. That really just kind of went to shit really, really fast. Well, as again, tie up the series, though, 1-1, Nina versus DisK. I don't think that's quite the style of win that you usually want to say after that first game and stuff happens, but or I guess the type of loss and everything, but it still puts us at a game 3 nonetheless, and I'm not going to complain, Zombie Garb, because this has been a treat of a series to pass.
I love it. I unironically love North American games. All right, like
why would it ever be ironically? Why can't you just say that you love it?
Ask them.
Yeah.
I always say it ironically. They're always like little forced smile, like, yeah, I love North America. And you're just like, no, it's amazing. What are you doing?
Powerful
I mean,
clowns.
I don't even know if it's NA bias, because I feel like Nate sometimes also a little ironically likes North America. But anyways, I think it's amazing. Maybe there's maybe Nate put it best in the little video, right? That it's not maybe the highest skill of games, but the fact is that they're still very high level, better than everyone else who's watching right now. Unless maybe like Lambo's still awake or something, but like and they're well matched is the most important thing, right? So when we see, I feel like a lot of stomps. Eventually, we get to this point where it's like it's so lovably scrappy because everyone has this really unique style. We finally get these really even matches, and yeah, it's gonna look a little weird, but that just makes it more fun.
Yeah, I think that is whenever someone asks me like why I really love North American StarCraft, one of the reasons I cite is I do really feel like everyone has like a much stronger emphasis on what their stylistic preferences are as a player than maybe a lot of the other regions. And it makes things really exciting and fun. And you get to see players kind of dive into that. We saw that in game 1 where Nina was able to literally start winning start almost turning that game around off the back of her micro, and DisK eventually out macroed her a little bit with after of course taking a good lead in the early game. But here we are, guys. Game number 3 is going to settle it as we start up at the top right-hand side of the map. Top of the blue Protoss player from Team Apprentice Esports. He is DisK.
In the bottom left, playing for Sidestorm Gaming, she is Nina.
So, Zombie Grab, I will say, like, one thing about this series that's worth noting is it's not anything that I think is going to fully determine how strong a chance I think either of these players has in this particular game or anything. But I do feel like Nina has had a bit of momentum going in all of the games so far. Like the last 2 games, toward the end, it was even as DisK won, it was almost like a little victory for Nina, and she was just building up momentum. And obviously that last game definitely going Nina's way very, very quickly. I am a little bit worried just momentum-wise for DisK heading into game number 3.
Yeah, this actually would be in line with the trend of Nina in the group so far, by the way, where she isn't, I mean, she's number one, and kudos to her, but she isn't, 12-0 in maps or whatever, right? She has lost a map a few times, actually. So her wins aren't super, super clear-cut, and that means that this does not mean that DisK is going to win just because he got the first map, right? And in fact, the way that had to play out kind of even might nod to more like, oh, well, Nina still is very confident, still very sure, knows how to make a comeback happen. So DisK kind of has to play against two things, getting a victory, getting a lead, let's say, against Nina, and then making sure that she doesn't have a comeback, where usually maybe you're only worrying about the one thing versus a lot of other players or a lot of other matchups.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it is getting ahead versus Nina is one thing, but finishing off the battle against Nina is a whole other thing, a whole other battle you have to actually deal with. Now, goes to the pylon block over here. Nina decides to cancel it, interestingly, after seeing the sentry coming on out. But yeah, I guess okay with the pylon not doing too much of a block there for now.
The other thing that was interesting about last game for Nina was that she didn't scout at all with a probe. I kind of forgot to mention that as things get heated to talk about the Stargate, but she had no scouting. She only went to the Zelnaga, and that ended up being fine because she was correct. But that either leads me to believe that either one, she kind of is playing around this idea of, well, you're going to trick me anyways, so why am I going to try and scout you? Which, by the way, she was very thorough this time. She found the second pylon in the corner. Or just that she knew DisK's habits on last map. So she knew where to check for any potential proxies. So that's kind of cool. But definitely appreciate that this time around she scouts, and she scouts thoroughly.
Absolutely. And it definitely is rewarded in these situations. Well, Nina does also have quite a few units moving around the map. I'd say she's basically dominating in terms of overall quote-unquote map control. That's because her stalkers are retreating back after seeing the sentries. She has her adepts coming on forward. Plenty of probes ready to build that shield battery. Should be able to deny a whole lot of anything happening from there. And the shield battery, the natural, also prevents the adepts from diving in on top of the sentries. So this should be totally fine here.
Yeah. And you can see, by the way, one of the reasons that he hasn't needed to have a forward pylon as a second pylon is that he builds his wall a bit differently than the other Protosses, where the pylon is on the corners, let's say, of the wall, so that you can put a shield battery on the low ground. So that's pretty cool. I do think, as we watch Adepts do get 2 probes, maybe a sentry.
Oh,
I think it's okay.
Shield battery.
Yeah. On this map, I do feel like it's a bit of a dangerous game because if we look at DisK's natural, that shield battery is really far away from the left side. Like if Nina wanted to push the issue, she could kind of skirt to the left and make a bit of trouble. But as it is not very dedicated pressure from either side, DisK is going to get away with that, no problem. And again, going for a faster third Nexus.
Yeah, well, the Hallucinating Phoenix is going to come out over here from Nina and should be able to swing around from the natural. We'll see if it's actually going to go and spot out that third. Did it already get wind of the third? Yes, it already actually saw that. So has full vision of everything and sees the Twilight Council being chrono boosted out with a lot of stalkers on the map. Gee, I wonder what that could be. It's going to be Blink. So overall shaping up to be like a kind of normal PvP setup.
DisK was a bit greedy last game, but I thought it was something that could be okay if he was immediately going to build a shield battery and was aware that Nina was moving out. That did not happen. But this is also a really greedy third base. He didn't get 2 gateways before going to the Nexus, or even an additional gateway, like 1 additional gateway. He's still on 2, but then he actually skipped the Forge. So, like I said, it's almost like greedy, but not. It's a different way of getting to a third Nexus. One that I wonder is really worth it, because the Nexus isn't that far ahead of Nina, but Nina's going to have a much faster +1. So I guess it's a lot about if this push does enough damage. But if Nina has a shield battery in her natural, which she does not, then this would have been totally fine, A-okay. Ooh, that's the only reason I'm concerned, is that there's no shield battery, but it looks like with reinforcements, she is fine.
Yeah, and she's going to be able to pick off some of the sentries over here. That actually really was going pretty well in terms of the actual engagements and the trades there for DisK initially. DisK is going to be able to sneak in 2 adepts during all of this, and even if it's not a ton of workers killed, even if it's just 3 or so, But still a lot of denied mining time over here and forcing Nina to pull all the way back with some of the stalkers or warping some more stalkers back at home. This is already actually done more than enough because, like you were saying, it's that slightly faster nexus and everything, but also the time to get up shield batteries at your third base and everything else that you'd want to do to ensure that you're not going to die to some kind of attack here.
Which is maybe a little concerning because Nina does finish up 5 gateways before DisK finishes up any more than 2. But yeah, it bought so much time that I think Nina even, not quite going to bother moving out on the map not until she gets a little bit of scouting perhaps first. But yeah, even with all of the adept damage and making sure she doesn't get any revenge, the worker count difference is still not that bad. There's definitely a spike for DisK, but overall it's not that bad. And again, Nina has considerably faster +2. The adepts did put a pause on it for maybe 10, 15 seconds, but it was so far ahead to begin with that Nina's still 30 seconds ahead on that.
Nina also does have, no immortals over here, so that has to be factored in, but has a decent number more stalkers than DisK right now. So with some good micro over here, it's still going to be pretty tough to actually make a whole lot happen thanks to the shield batteries being there, but still seeing stalkers trading out versus stalkers. So, if just stalkers are dying, I think both of these players are going to be okay with it, as long as nothing else massive is going down. But yeah, Nina's just going to go ahead and add on some more gateways, get up charge, and I guess wait for +2 weapons to finish up while she is poking around on the map.
DisK's 2 immortals are looking pretty strong right here, right now. Nina does not have charge anywhere close to being done. +2 is not going to be a factor from the 45 seconds. If DisK had a warp prism, I would feel like maybe a push would be warranted, but unfortunately the warp prism is only just now coming out. By the time that reaches across the map and gives DisK the green light, I think Nina will have all her gateways finished, her upgrades done, including charge, and probably a handful of charge lots to help out.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. I think it's going to be difficult to make that push happen too much later on. We'll see if DisK still decides to go for it, though, because I guess it'll be hard for him to have the exact read on the timing for that +2 weapons there from Nina. But,
I think he knows he pushed off his own +1. So unless he was really bringing the pain to Nina, he probably figures that he is even significantly far behind on the upgrade.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Well, we see just nothing but stalkers and zealots getting warped in over here for Nina, up to 27 stalkers and 5 zealots, and no immortals being added on from that robo. Just, I guess, a couple of observers that Nina was able to get out earlier on. As she starts up a 4th base, we're starting to see that DisK is warping in more stalkers of his own, and getting ready for the attack on the bottom right-hand side, which Nina seems to have caught wind for.
She has +2 done, and DisK is going to click on that, and, if he didn't know before, he'll definitely know now. And 2 immortals is fantastic, but with also the shield batteries and the increasing number of zealots, I don't think DisK could really push the issue. Patrolling, looking for little pokes, maybe even hoping that Nina moves into him, fair enough. But this is, I think, more of a front at this point, hoping that even Nina's not getting as fast of a 4th base. She is, but it's just in the bottom right.
Yeah. Another observer being taken out there. Nina's so good at sniping off those observers. She's got 3 out in the map. And DisK has none right now, which might actually put him in a kind of awkward spot. He does get out of what could have been a total trap there at the 4th base at the last second.
Yeah, that is the complication of that corner base, is like, oh, great, I found them not there. Oh, wait, I trapped myself. Like, if you can kill it fast enough and recall, then fair. But at this point, with over 160 supply for both of them, they can't recall their entire army. It's not large enough. So it'd be a bit of a risk. And I think instead, DisK is just going to have to be happy with the fact that they're both on the same trajectory, which is getting into disruptors. But again, Nina a bit faster on the 2nd robo, already producing disruptors. And yes, the +3 is still ahead.
All right, well, Warp Prism is trying to make its way over to the main base, but Nina's got a handful of stalkers, even actually going to warp in one more just to ensure that Warp Prism can get absolutely nothing done. So while DisK has been postured out here for such a long period of time, even going to be warping in a lot of zealots right underneath the observer. Oh, man. That actually might be a very nice snag for Nina if she's able to find... Oh, yeah, well, gets a couple of zealots, but I don't think you want to lose a disruptor in exchange for it.
No, I don't think that was super ideal. But now DisK also knows that he's been figured out, so he's going to kind of mix things up, put the army on the left and zealots on the right. Some stack defense there. Yeah, I guess the static, the overcharge and the shield barrier makes sense for that fight as opposed to the one with the disruptors, because she's probably fine just with the disruptors actually being here and DisK still waiting for his own.
Yeah, I think the disruptor's also not going to care as much about shield battery over here.
Yeah. It looks like it was targeted down by DisK, so causing a little more chaos than Nina was hoping for. Loses 9 probes, gets a little bit distracted. DisK is taking control of the map, so we're in not exactly a similar scenario to Romanticide, not at all, because Nina's totally fine as far as supply and positioning, but she is on the defensive, and she's going to have to start fitting in her own harassment. Maybe a Dark Shrine will come down for her too, before she might be able to say anything in return. She might also just be hoping to take the better fights, but that was a very risky blink. Fortunately, the last-second split negated really the power of it, and then it was the second disruptor that got shot down, and there's the first one. Doesn't get another shot.
Blink on cooldown from before. Another disruptor comes forward. Oh my god, Nina blinks forward again, gets the disruptor, narrowly dodges another one of the disruptors that was helping to reinforce over there. Some very, very scary trades for both sides. At the end of the day, I guess Nina has sniped off quite a few of those disruptors, 3 of them going down right now, so is sitting up 4-1. This still has an overwhelming number of stalkers, but I guess Nina has an overwhelming number of zealots. I think she does have, like, finally some map control now, though.
Yeah, I do think that was a little bit of overeagerness, but then as well, it did give her some map control, and she did take down disruptors, which even if it's not exactly a fair trade, just as far as mineral gas value goes, it's more just, well, is that the more important tool? Is it getting the disruptor count down to maybe even 0 if DisK isn't really quick to rebuilding? It's 6-3 right now, but we're going to have a little base trade by the looks of things.
Yeah, but I think this heavily favors Nina because Nina's the one that's able to initiate it very quickly over here. Has to be careful with the disruptors, of course. I think she gets out that first shot, so she is going to keep her own disruptor alive. This gets into a really, really wonky situation, but remember, Nina is going to be able to blink in on top of these reinforcing disruptors, sniping them off one at a time. At the same time, DisK is trying to do the same, but DisK is just getting started right now. Nina should be able to recall some units and potentially mount a defense whenever she feels like she has the opportunity to.
Yeah, I think she still thinks there's more damage to be done. She does have an observer with her main army, so DisK's last-second DT defense is not quite going to work out. But DisK is still going on in Nina's main base at this point, taking down both robos. That disruptor should never get a shot. There you have it. DisK might have started the base trade a little bit later, and that ultimately might be DisK's downfall. But at the very least, they're starting to get, like, he's on top of Nina's production. So maybe DisK can start getting some... Oh, he doesn't have any gas. Yeah, this is his last disruptor being pumped out in the main base.
That is definitely going to hurt. I guess one nice thing that DisK does have going for him, even if there are observers on the map, having DTs in a base trade can be extremely helpful, but DTs, okay, got to be careful not to run straight into the army over here. I think they're maybe just looking for some free damage as they see that, hey, we're not getting killed right now. Maybe we can find something over here. A base in the top left is actually going to be able to buy DisK a little bit more time before Nina feels like maybe she needs to recall, but not actually going to recall yet.
She has so much going down in the bottom right. Oh, man. And there's the recall as well. Again, not her entire army. That is the tricky part about these larger armies, but most importantly, it's the disruptors. And she's already built a robotics bay. She even has a forge being rebuilt, so more stack defense is very possible. Gonna have to give up the third base, yes, but Nina, I think, is in an okay position, but DisK does have the stronger army, or the more army, I should say. I don't even know if it's stronger, right? Because Nina's 3 disruptors could be the key to victory, certainly the key to defending this base.
You know, there's one really weird thing I'm a bit worried about, Zombie Grub, is that DisK is actually keeping alive at least his production in the main base. Once he gets some supply blocks and stuff, you'll have more disruptors coming out. I think it's really difficult to move out of the base that Nina is at right now. A lot of her army is going to be sitting over there. If DisK can control the bottom of that ramp, he effectively has secured the entire map against Nina. I don't know if you'll end up doing that because it is dangerous, especially when you only have 1 disruptor that's low on hit points. That was one fear I had, and I think that's going to at least be resolved for now, as long as Nina moves out before DisK gets there again.
Right, yeah. No, it's actually still very complicated. As I was saying, like, DisK, maybe if he had been strong on his decision to do the base race, would have been definitely in a better position, but he was a bit late to it. He did make the right move, which is to go for the production, which, you know, Protoss, maybe it's not all in the main base, but it might not be Terran, it is still mostly in the main base. So he gets his production up and ready, is still going to build disruptors. Nina a little bit later to it, but does have the most important production, which is disruptors already going. It's just that DisK was able to save more of, I guess, the gateway units. That's the best way to put them. So it's, the sheer numbers work out, or to disruptors win the game. It really depends on positioning, which DisK is going to have the advantage of.
Yeah. I was just laughing because I noticed that DisK actually got the observer speed upgrade, which is going to help keep that one observer he has alive and is going to be able to finally snipe off that observer that Nina has on the low ground. But I mean, this is that point that we're talking about. Okay. Disruptor getting picked off there, only the Immortal losing the shields and everything. But Nina is still, again, caught up on that high ground now. And this is hitting the point where DisK actually has 3 disruptors out on the map right now. It's not necessarily the 6 that Nina has, but it does become a little bit more complicated for Nina to bust out of here. Well, DisK is actually taking bases. DisK!
Okay, so I think this is the reason he didn't stay here in the first place. When you started talking about this exact predicament, I think this is why DisK didn't want to do it, because he knew that he was going to be like not paying full attention 100% of the time, and that Nina might get him basically, which, once maybe isn't game breaking, but twice like absolutely could be. Already Nina has gathered an army supply lead, another snipe on the observer, as DisK is willing to maybe sacrifice a little bit for that. He's gonna be careful, but he really wants that vision.
I'm trying to remember. Oh my god, that aggressive blink forward is a little bit scary. But I guess it ends up paying off, doesn't end up losing too many stalkers, and snipes off a disruptor. I believe, I wish I remember this number, but there is a magic number of disruptors where you can continuously fire them out. Gonna be able to get out quite a few, gets almost all the disruptors there for Nina. Nina down to 1 disruptor. She cannot do that kind of continued harassment anymore.
Oh my gosh, things have turned around so bad. Nina now dipping down in supply. The best thing she had going for her was the increased disruptor count. Now she only has 1, about to have 2, I suppose, but she's down by 13 stalkers. DisK might just be able to win with sheer numbers yet again, just like the first map of Romanicide. And of course, Nina, she knows that another base has been built. So the observers were up there 2 minutes ago before they came back and then lost their lives. She knows that she's on a timer, and now that hasn't worked, now she might just try and be desperately moving out. But there's no way she can win 1 base to potentially 2, 3, 4, 5 as DisK has taken the map and cornered her in her base.
We're starting to see DisK continue to just chip away at this army, and Nina, while she had some pretty good mining going for a while, and she still has that mining happening, she knows that at this point, there's a time where she tries to sneak a base directly south of DisK's main. I love the cheekiness coming out of this lady.
If there is a warp prism, it will fly over that. So just hope for Nina.
If there's an observer that gets reinforced, it will fly over it.
Exactly. Anything from the robo that flies is going to be, and DisK might start picking up on this. Yep, he sends a zealot. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's on his side of the map, right? But I think he would have checked all the other bases as well. Jackanoth is not that big. Nina is going to pounce on that disruptor and then shoot out her own, which does catch the tail end of DisK's stalkers. I mean, even in the corner position that she is, she's managing to find some things to work, but it's not really overcome the fact that DisK just killed like 6 of hers. She's still making up for that terrible loss in the micro battle earlier.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where DisK just isn't producing any more disruptors, and Nina is continuing to get out 2 at a time, so she's up to 5, now down to 4, but is about to go back up to like 6 or so. And I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit worried here for DisK now, Zombie Crow.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to cast this. I'm not going to bet you $100.
Yeah.
DisK wins the game.
It definitely becomes a complicated situation now because Nina has effectively busted out of that entrenched position. And the entrenched position also, it's not like one of those situations where you can easily push in with this like Stalker Zealot army. Even if your opponent's not up that ramp, you don't want to get caught with all of your units going in there against disruptors because you don't have room to micro back anymore. So you can't really push into there as long as the army's somewhat nearby. And now Nina's establishing the base next door. It's not exactly a full thriving base, but it's something.
It is something. Unfortunately, she had a little hit squad go across the map, but DisK had actually had some units skewed across, just looking for anything at all, so the observer saw it. and he chose the opportunity to jump on like a good 20 supply of units there. So now there's a significant supply gap. Nina, though, absolutely with disruptors could still win this game, and she's going to push the issue as soon as she forces DisK back into his own base, into his own corner. She's going to pummel him with disruptors. So that's actually something that DisK kind of needs to not let happen. Nina's going to back away from now, not confident in her position to win, but that is the best case scenario for disruptors, is DisK without a place to maneuver.
Yeah, I was just laughing as the DT was just chasing with the army like an observer, keeping track of it until finally it gets back. But ooh, DisK moving along this right-hand side might be able to catch Nina before she finally gets all of her units back up to the high ground. Might be able to find one of the disruptors reinforcing. Oh, just barely missed vision of it. Oh, is DisK paying attention? DisK loses a massive chunk of those stalkers. Is now only about 11 or 12 stalkers ahead. Scratch that, 11 stalkers ahead now of Nina. And I want to note, yes, DisK does have like the quote-unquote fresher base and stuff in the top left, but at the end of the day, they're both sitting on about the same worker counts right now. So I would say their economies actually lean a little bit toward Nina just because she has 2 bases mining.
It is starting to a little bit, maybe as DisK starts mining out, actual mineral patches. I do think that DisK may have wanted to grab another Nexus. I mean, I guess technically he was going to try, but then Nina had that little Stalker hit squad, because there's still a probe up to the top left. But, because he stopped building disruptors too. So either because like he was lacking gas and wanted to rebuild Stalkers and try and brute force it, or because, maybe, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's the only reason you'd stop building disruptors, because not building disruptors is giving Nina a chance. Even though his own disruptors don't guarantee success.
Yeah, I think DisK split off his one disruptor over to the left-hand side for a moment, looking like he wanted to try and flank with it. Didn't quite find the angle, and I think it's for the best in the end, because, well, I guess the disruptor doesn't get a whole lot done anyways. But that Stalker hit squad on the top left is giving, I would say, DisK a really hard time at that mining base right now, losing a vast majority of his probes while the army for Nina chases DisK across the map. I cannot believe this, Zombie Girl, but if this army supply is more or less even, Nina has a massive edge in this.
Yeah, she does once again lose those Stalkers, but not only did they deny that that second Nexus that I was talking about, they also killed all the probes. I mean, DisK was clearly not really, I feel like his game plan didn't really revolve around getting a better economy, right? Because he didn't push that issue. He kept on trying to attack into Nina. And now that there is basically no economy, I think his mentality might be pretty much just all in at this point. Just go for it and make it work, which Nina, she played a bit more of a patient game, I think, overall, even trying to expand again. That is denied, and this is actually about to get really awkward as DisK is finding perhaps a better position, but he knows he has to be worried about disruptors. There's 11 on the field. They're going to be popping up every which way we look.
Yeah, there is one thing I do think can work. Oh my God, a very scary blink there. Blinks out of the disruptor. There's one thing I will say about PvP, is that there is a point of, I don't want to say like entirely like diminishing returns on disruptors, but there's a point where you get so many disruptors that it's hard to really split them up effectively. As you see, all of Nina's disruptors are bunched up. One disruptor hit from DisK can start to turn things around there, and he's still got his own 3 disruptors. There's a point where he can actually just start to find big wins with those.
Possibly, yeah. I feel like this is such a hard game to call, by the way. Like even we're trying to figure things out. 25
no one's
minutes.
calling this game anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like maybe DisK is going to look back at this game and wish that he had just played the expansion process. Keep her tucked into her corner base as long as possible. Admit that at some point she would have grabbed this second Nexus, but then also had his own second Nexus and a third Nexus perhaps. Because the disruptors don't work so well when they have to go on the map. Which, okay, apparently it's just going to be chaos all of a sudden. DisK going for it, and Nina with all of her disruptor shots is finding big money, but the zealots of DisK are actually collapsing in. The disruptors are starting to fall, actually. Nina gets the one fantastic shot left, and DisK has plummeted in supply. The army supplies are fairly similar, but now we're talking about a lot of stacked defense, which DisK cannot break, even as he has 2 more disruptors. All he's going to find is 1 Nexus, which isn't quite enough, as another disruptor does not get the shot. Wow, I did not think the game was going to be decided there.
And I think it's still kind of going on right now, because DisK Remember, he only has 2 workers. He cannot replenish any of these units. Good Blink Stalker Micro for the most part. Loses 1 or 2 of the Stalkers over there, but the cell account is starting to run dry. Disruptors have to come to the mix, but eventually the tap out happens. Nina claims victory.